Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Mayow and I'm going to be your MC for today. But could you please welcome our kaumātua, Papa Fred, to open us for today.
Ka tira, tēnā no tātou katoa ko huitai mai rau te tūnia o tātou whare. Tēnei ngā kaupapa, tino nui rau atu. Hewa ni a tātou I tēnei rā. Welcome everybody. Indeed an honour to be asked to do the opening this morning. So without further ado, what do you say we get into it? Ka tira, kia taumenu te rangi Māori ki nui kia tātou katoa, kia tuku koe ki tō tātou reo whakamoimiti. Kia inui tātou, let us pray. Kia whai Karakia, kia koe I hoa o ngā mana. Te matu o te tama te wairu tapu me ngāna hera pono tati o ki tō koutou, ki tō mātou māna. Tēnei rā mātou katoa huitau ni tāro tēnei rā I hoa. He tūmanako I te whātu I te reo whakamoimiti whaka Karakia whakawetai ki mūki tō waroro. Wā manakitanga I hoa kia uhia mai a koe ki nui kia mātou katoa huita inei. Inei nā kotahi anake te whakaro, ki huitahi mai koe me mātou, hei arataki, hei tiaki, hei tuitui a mātou. I rote ngā mahi ka mahi nei mātou I hoa nā runga anō I te whakaetanga, ko koe anake tō mātou piringa, ara tō mātou pākaha, e tino tatana kia mātou I ngā wā katoa. Homai anō hoki kia mātou te wairu hihiko, te wairu marama. Te wairu anō hoki te whakapono me te rangi Māria, hei mea o te ia mātou mahi katoa, I runga anō hoki ki te au, ia ure kai. Nā reira ka tangi whakaiti, kauake kia koe. Uhi e tonu tia mai āngana ki tonu kuna kia mātou. Hono tu I hoa ki o mātou whānau ki o mātou tamariki. Ano rā ki ngā mea whakaoirua mai nei rati ngā kūpū rātou whae. I nei nā koutou nake e ngāriki. E kite hona e mohene ngā ahuatanga katoa e pāna ki a koutou poronga. Nā reira ka tangi whakaiti kaua ki rati te reo whakamoimiti. Nungani te Karakia tanga ki tau ingoa I hoa te matua te tama. Te wairua tapa me ngāna he ropono, o koe mai pāta māme kei rota. Hei tautuku mai e nei tūmanako, kia tūturu, a rākia pūmau, ai anei, a ake nei, ai, āmi nei, kia ora mai tātou. A kā tira. Hei whakami, hei whakatau kauke I a koutu I tēnei rā. I rote ngā pukorero e ki ana, mai o tātou mātua tūpuna. Mai I te takutai moana, ki ngā tāhuna, ngā waikare moana, o te waitamata, te mānukunuka a hoturoa, te kaipara. E karanga ana te manukaroro, kai e. Kia hora te marino ke whakapakapaunu te moana, kia tere te kārohi roi ki mua ki tō huarahi, kaputa ki te whai au, te ao marama, tihei Māori ora. Ka tira pēnei kōkana te takato ngā kororo nei, I re te reo, kia nei tātou te reo. From the continental shelf to the shores and sparkling waters of the Waitamata, the Mānukunuka Aoturoa and the Kaipara harbours. The blackback gull sings its lament. Let the calm be widespread. Let the sea listen like the greenstone. May the shimmering reflections of sunlight forever dance across your pathway. Thus, we are led from the rays of early dawn into the fullness of day. Behold, it is light. Nā reira ka mihi kou kia koutuka tatu meni tāo te rā. I runga I tēnei kapuka tino whakahirihira. Hei mea e puta e te oronga ki mai anui a tātou. Ai wika toa o tāna ki makauro. Hono atu hoki o tātou motu o Aotearoa. Nā reira ka mihi kou kia koutou. Koutou I ahu mai tawiti. Mai e rā pito, e rā whenua katoa I runga ngā kare o te moana. Mihi kou ina kia koutou. Kāro I uki rote o koutou ngā koutou whatu manawa kia tatu mai koutou ki runga o Aotearoa. I te aha, te whiriwhiri ngā huatanga e putai ko te ronga. A reira ka mihi kouke, ka mihi kouke, ka mihi kouke. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be a hard task for me to try and translate that, so I hope at least you got the gist of what I was talking about. Suffice to say, it's fantastic to be asked to do this and to see so many people with that concern for our whenua. Nā reira, ka mihi kou ki tā koutou. Huri noa. Mai ngā kōku ngā katoa tō tātou whare. Kia ora kuku mai tātou. Kia ora. I was supposed to sing, but I'll do it anyway. Kia ora mai. This is so far, Te aroha, te whakapono, te rangi mari e, tātou tātou e, te
Greetings, everybody. It's great to be here, and it is great to see you all. On this beautiful day, I have to say the last 48 hours, I wasn't sure we were going to have such gorgeous weather. As I've said before, my name's Mayow, and I'm your MC for this event. I was the MC last year, and it is great to see so many familiar faces back here. When we started to look at opening this event, we talked about what kind of culture we wanted, and it was about being relaxed. And one of the hallmarks of last year's conference people went away with was it was a great sense of community, of people coming together. We encourage you to embrace that, encourage it, and do everything you can to make this next 2 days truly a community of learning. We have all knowledge and skills that we can bring to bear. Please contribute, go away. I want you to have the sense when you leave and you go away from this, that this was a fantastic launch pad for you to move on in your enterprises and your endeavours. The New Zealand Community Economic Development Conference has been put together by a large group of people and a network of people, but I would particularly like to acknowledge Di Jennings, who's just here in the front row, who's been the leader of the Community Economic Development Network in Auckland and New Zealand, and has really worked incredibly hard. So Di and your team, well done. I'd also like to acknowledge our sponsors, and Community Waitakere has been the grandparenting body, and all the staff and the team and the board there have been right behind making it happen. The other sponsors I just want to acknowledge is the Auckland Council, but there are a number of others that I will also go through. Without their assistance, we could not put on today. Now, we've got a very packed program, so I'm going to be moving on to speakers. I have a couple of very small health and safety type announcements. In the event of an incident, now, some of you will remember last year that I brought my fireman's helmet, but I decided to dress up this year and bring my more formal fireman's helmet. I volunteer as a volunteer firefighter out in the Bethels Valley, so I'm going to do my official health and safety announcements with my fireman's hat on. My apologies to those of you who are in the fire crew that I'm not wearing the full kit, but you'll hopefully get the gist of it. In the event of an incident, our staff are in red shirts, and they will guide you out the exit doors, out into either the car park this way or the fields that way, where we'll manage whatever incident happens. The other thing I did was I went down to Christchurch as part of the USAR response through Auckland Council, and I did it twice. So this was the hat that I wore. It is incredibly unlikely that we will have an earthquake. But in the event that we do, look for places that have got secure above you, and then make your way out of the building safely. Right, that's the health and safety. The other one is, let's be present here. Let's take this time that we have to be here. If you don't need to be available, switch it off. Put it away. Take the time to be present among really good people. I think that'll do for me for the moment. We'll now move on to Tony Mayow, who is going to have a short address. Tony is the chair of the Community Waitakere Board, plus numerous other bodies, which I won't go through. But one of the things I thought I would do, just to show that actually we are a room of activists, a room of people who do things, is I've asked each of the speakers to tell me what was their first thing that they organised. And Tony tells me that the first thing he organised was a petition on the New Zealand vote around being at the time the New Zealand under 18s voting, 18-year-olds voting. And he got 11,000 signatures in that campaign. Tony is a consummate activist. He's worked in a variety of different places. He's a great person to open today. Please welcome Tony Mayow.
It's going to be terribly difficult to be serious at this conference. Having just been described as the grandparent community Waitakere, that's a bit of a worry. It is true that Pat Watson and I started the predecessor of community Waitakere, which was called WADCOS, in 1983, and we're still doing it. But still to be called a grandparent is, I suppose, is a position of some honour, in fact. So I'll take it, Mark. It is a fantastic pleasure to stand here to welcome you all today. There's no doubt about that. I've also been given sort of running orders from one of the many people I've already spoken to say that if I'm worse than I was last year, he's leaving. So that's a bit of a worry. But I know I can relax because I've got Len Brown following me, so who's going to worry about anything, really? I do wear a couple of hats as I welcome you, though. The first is the chair of Community Waitakere, not the Waitakere Community Board, which I think Mark called us, but Community Waitakere, which did the organising today. And that's a very proud hat I wear there. The conference, as you know, is being organised on behalf of the Community Economic Development Trust, and we have Lindsay Jeffs here representing that as well. The second hat I wear, though, is from a national perspective. I'm the president of an organisation that used to be known as the New Zealand Federation of Voluntary Welfare Organisations. But this is the first public occasion on which I'm going to tell you that I now am the president of Social Development Partners. After 35 years, we've changed our name. That clap is a big relief too, because we didn't know how it would be received. So we've been involved with the conference as well, and very proudly, and particularly the hothouse session, which you're going to be enjoying, I'm sure. Now, I know from the registrations, and I know from what Mark is saying, that a lot of you were here last year, and you will remember that we had a hell of a good conference then. We had a lot of fun, a huge amount of laughs, and we did some serious work as well. And it seems like just yesterday that we were celebrating the success of that event. Indeed, I think most people's conclusion was that it was the buzziest conference they'd ever attended, so we've got a lot to live up to. Since that conference, of course, so much has happened in New Zealand, hasn't it? And it's good and bad that's happened in New Zealand. And it's quickly become clear, though, that there was overwhelming support for another conference, so here we are. But all of those changes in New Zealand, I think we need to acknowledge since the time that we last met. And it's the whole economic, social and environmental landscape that's changed, absolutely literally and incredibly dramatically. I'm finding it difficult these days to do other than this little exercise. Forgive me, I do a hop to the right, and my right foot is my pessimist foot. And then I do a hop to the left, and my left foot is my optimist's foot. And I find myself doing this an awful lot at the moment. You could do it with your right and left hand. On the one hand this, and on the one hand that, and the one's good and one's bad. and that's the situation in New Zealand. But I actually find that I need both of those feet to be fully engaged, to keep me on an even keel today, to understand what's going on. And that's part of what we're here to do today, to understand what's going on and learn from it and move on from it. The earthquake, of course, has literally rocked us all to the core. The word munted has now entered our national lexicon, and its impact is going to be felt for many years, good and bad. We know all about the bad, but the good is also shone through. The power of community resilience has been demonstrated yet again. The fact that no society can stand if it doesn't stand on communities. And we've seen that time and time again in the recovery so far from the Christchurch earthquake. Communities and their organisations underpin everything that happens in society. Not something we should ever forget. We're going to see a lot of examples of that throughout the conference. The Littleton Time Banking Scheme, for instance, shines through as an example for us all. But we also know, over here, that the agency established to rebuild Christchurch, CERA, looks like paying lip service only to communities. It looks like communities have been sidelined to words like input and implementation. I've seen the drawing, and we're down on the boxes on the side. We're not in the middle. In the name of centralisation and speedy decision-making, and we know what centralisation and speedy decision-making often end up with. We also know that the budget looming is going to contain massive slashes in public services spending, and that's partly in the name of Christchurch recovery. And this is all happening, of course, in an economy already tottering, struggling to pull out of the recession, still dogged by scandals in the finance sector. And I'm afraid I see little evidence of willingness on government's behalf to consider innovative approaches to economic issues. So what's clear today, and I'm sorry about the sobering stuff, but this is our reality, is that one of the motivators for social enterprise and community economic development is the drying up of traditional government funding. We know that that's a fact, and that's gathering in momentum. It's not going to reverse. And that's just confirmed by the philanthropics. There's a similar trend with them. So the need to free ourselves from the constraints of government spending and to foster our own freedom, sponsor our own freedom by independence, from that funding and all of those old models of funding has never been more starkly apparent than it is today. Now let's jump back onto my optimist's foot, because there's also evidence. We've got a Pollyanna mayor. There's also evidence that those same philanthropics are coming to the party. They're more willing now to engage on the realities of social enterprise and CED than ever. Those conversations are happening all over. We also know it's a little bit early to call it a trend, but we know that there's a lot of businesses that are actually starting to come to our party, that want to engage with us, that want to understand what we're on about, and that want to have those conversations to see where they stand in relation to their communities. So that's a really good thing that's happening. There's going to be some evidence of that over the next couple of days as well. And I want to acknowledge the role Westpac has played in that in regard to the hothouse sessions. And I know that Westpac is engaging with community, Waitakere, on in-depth discussions on strategic relationships. That's a newie for New Zealand, really. The community sector, as a result, we're learning new skills and languages. We're seeing with new lenses as we engage more consistently with that business sector. It's a little bit painful, but we're starting to bear fruit, and that can only be good. So all these pictures that I see, the good and the bad, and sometimes the ugly, they provide us with a spur to urgency in our actions today. We want to move as soon as possible. There is a huge urgency to move from the theoretical to the practical, and to move CED and social enterprise from the fringe to the mainstream. And that's what we're trying to do with this conference. It's still a broad brush. We know the movement's still young, but there's a lot of hard-edged and practical sessions involved here. The masterclass yesterday, that was an intensive tools and skills-based workshop, and that could have been sold 2 times over. So the interest is there, and we're growing the leadership. There's an incredible depth and breadth to this program. We've got a fantastic variety of visitors, and we're particularly pleased this year to be offering much greater Māori content in accordance with a demand that was made from last year, and I particularly welcome Ngāti Mublair, who's joining us today. There's a lot of innovative approaches and presentations, such as that hothouse session on social entrepreneurship. And of course, we do have Mayor Len Brown and Penny, and they are the 2 shining beacons of light in terms of the local government scene that we face now. Because we know that as one of those massive changes that's taken place over the past year, the changes in local government governance in Auckland has been one of the most major ones here. And that's brought its own challenges, its own difficulties, but it's also brought us Mayor Brown and Deputy Mayor Penny Hulse, both of whom are enthusiastic proponents of community economic development, and we're going to hear from them. There's a lot that local government can do for us to assist this movement. Local procurement policies, the devolution of management of community assets to local communities. They're just 2 areas that we want to challenge local government to address. And they could start, local government, by committing to adopt a community economic development strategy as part of their long-term plans. And I'd really hope that such a call will be one that will become forthcoming from this conference. I started by recognising the impact of the Christchurch earthquake. It's very clear that ultimately this hasn't deterred any of you from getting here, and that's fantastic. And I think that actually is one of the outcomes of the quake. It's actually made us more and more determined. So that's a damn good thing. Despite that earthquake, despite the recession, despite the dislocation of constant change, despite all those things on my right foot, there's no doubt that CED has developed a momentum of its own in New Zealand, and the huge demand for this conference and the huge turnout has confirmed that. It remains only for me to thank our conference team, which Mark's already done a little bit, Di Jennings, Lindsay Jeffs and Pat Watson. You guys have done an amazing job again. And just in conclusion, I'd probably say that I've already talked to probably 30 or 40 or 50 people. I'm just about talked out already, but I'm really looking forward to continuing a lot of those conversations in depth over the next 2 days. And I'm standing here with both of my feet firmly grounded. I have an eye on both the right and the left foot, and I think it's really important to keep those feet grounded and to make sure that as we go forward with our eyes open and our hearts and our brains firmly engaged. I look forward to a wonderful conference. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.